Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and today I am flying solo. Zach and Oscar both unfortunately unavailable, but we'll be back later in the week with some more football action. So I thought today I would try and have just a bit of a therapy session, a bit of a look forward to what's left of the season, which is tough with the position we're in, and maybe a bit of a reflection on why the season's been as painful as it has been as a Saints fan. And you know, we talk a lot about what's the point. We've talked a lot about Juric and whether there's much point keeping him or if there's a point firing him with as few games to go as we've got left in the season. And it's a tricky one for sure. Personally, I think just get rid at this point. I don't see it getting better under him. I don't know if it would get better without him, but it's a struggle to look forward to go into the games. As you all know, I go to the games with my my young kids every home game. We're season ticket holders, and it's hard. It's been really demoralising and demotivating this season. You know, you look at our last 9 games, and I think it's 31 goals against and 6 goals scored at home, and it's harrowing and it's awful. And you know, on course to be the worst team in Premier League history with a points tally, and it's hard. I hear a lot of people saying and trying to put the argument forward that we're not playing like the worst team in Premier League history, and we're good here, and we have promise in spells. But actually, I think if I'm trying to reflect on the season as a whole, do I think we deserve to be labelled and end up on this points tally as the worst team in Premier League history? And I don't know, maybe is kind of where I'm at. It's not in the ability sense. We're a team of capable players, I think. But from a fighting perspective, like the desire and will to get on the ball, be on the ball, drive forward and do something with the ball, that's just seemed to be lacking from the very get-go in the season. I think the amount of times we've criticised the team for slowly passing the ball around the back, not having any sort of seeming sense of urgency, not having any progression, no movement off the ball, very little drive or desire on the ball. It's upsetting. It's been a really tough season to take, and it's hard to get yourself back into the cycle of optimism we talk about, where you get back and look forward to going to a game. Because even in the start of the season, when there was still hope and optimism, and obviously we joke that I predicted that Saints would finish 12th this season, I thought things would go a lot better than they have. But it hasn't clicked. There's been no fight, desire, urgency, and that's really what sets us apart from everybody else, I think. Obviously, there's other things. There's tactical mishaps. There's individual errors. There's formations and play systems that clearly haven't worked and have been stuck to too long. There's questions on recruitment for sure, and all of the other stuff that goes into it. But the lack of fight and desire is the point that really upsets me and really makes it much harder to swallow. And yeah, I don't know if we've got what it takes to go on and get the rest of the points to not, you know, be as bad as Derby or worse than Derby. You look at the games we've got coming up, and there aren't many opportunities out of the 9 games to really drill home and drive on and get anything out of it. Is the problem. Time is running incredibly short. And, you know, I don't know if we're going to play a team worse than Wolves were on Saturday. You know, they scored 2 and 1. Sure, they did their job. but they should have been easier to beat than we made it look. We've got Crystal Palace next, who are on sort of a bit of a run of form of their own. They've really sort of hit the ground running and seem to be flying. And otherwise, you might look at that game and think that was winnable. But again, we're coming up against teams at the wrong time. And if we can't, Wolves were the only team that we could mathematically catch when we took them on. So they're the team we needed to be fighting to beat, and there was still no fight, no drive. I just don't see where it's coming from. I guess you could look ahead to Leicester away and speculate that maybe that is the game that we could win and put us over that tally, but I don't know if we're going to be able to. I guess it seems at the point in the season that it's more likely that we do something away than at home because our home form is so shocking. It's going to be a really tough run to the summer. I know a lot of people are mentally checked out already. I know Zach is, sort of vocally talking about looking forward to next season and actively preparing for the work that goes into that. But I still think it's important to not completely embarrass ourselves this season in more than we already have, because it's been shambolic. It's been the worst season as a season ticket holder I've experienced. And the last relegation season was bad, but this has been really on a different level. And what I'm going to do after the break is sort of look through our remaining fixtures and really, really try and work out what, if anything, might come from them, and if there's a way that we can sort of get past that all-important 11-point total.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bionic, the world's most personalised supplements. Bionic provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bionic. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body.
Okay, and we are back. So yeah, I'm going to look forward and kind of try and speculate on the remaining fixtures we've got. And there's a lot of moving parts, obviously, going into this, but Juric being one, if Juric stays or Juric doesn't stay. I mean, I saw an interview today that he still seems pretty confident he's going to be our manager next season, and I hope not. Speculation of Danny Roll, as we talked about. I don't know if he is going to be the man, and if he is the man, is he the right man? I don't know, but we will see. It's going to be a much more interesting season next year, we can hope. But yeah, as I alluded to, we've got Crystal Palace next on a Wednesday night. If they are sort of hit the ground running recently, their form is really, it's much better than ours. So it could be an interesting game. Whether we can push on and get anything from that, it feels unlikely, doesn't it? All right, a home fixture is it's hard to predict seeing anything coming from that. It really is. They've beat Villa, they've beat Ipswich, they beat Fulham. It's hard with them having such a good month to see us stopping them in their tracks. It's not a fixture I think we are going to be able to get anything from, and unfortunately I just think that story goes on because after that we've got a Sunday afternoon game against Spurs at Spurs. I mean, it's away, so maybe, but it's not a team that going into the season you'd expect to get points against. It's not the sort of team you would target to be where our points are coming from. Then the following week we're at home to Aston Villa. Villa are still in the Champions League. They are in the knockout stages, flying high. Like, it's not a game that you look at and expect us to get anything from. And if we're feeling like that, looking at it, even Villa not on the best run of form, couple of losses, couple of draws in recent memory, but it just feels like they're going to have the ability to run all over us, and that's scary. West Ham might be a closer game, up in 16th place, but joint on points with that sort of group dangling above the relegation zone, just sort of out of reach of the three in the bottom three. That's a game, I guess, that we should be targeting to get the points, but it's really hard to see. It's really hard to see us getting anything. Like maybe we get a draw against Palace and a draw against West Ham, and then that puts us level on those points. And we've got after that Fulham, Leicester, Man City, the last ever league game at Everton at Goodison Park, and then Arsenal at home on the last day of the Premier League. Could we be in a position where on the last day we have another sort of wild rubber match with nothing real to play for, where we end up with a stupidly high amount of goals, accidental draw like we saw on the last day of our last relegation season when we drew 4-4 with Liverpool? Do we have like a 3-3 draw with Arsenal or something? It's definitely on the cards, but like if we're not the worst team in Premier League history by a point, and that point is a game like that on the last day of the season, there's an argument to be made that we're still the worst team in Premier League history. It's really upsetting. I don't know. We'll stick with it, and we'll see. What's the answer? Is there anyone that would be able to get more out of the players to get that fight back in at this point in the season when it's so far gone? The club have effectively come out and said they know we're relegated. This doesn't take a footballing genius to look at the table and know that. Despite what's mathematically possible, what's realistic is we've been relegated for maybe as many as 2 months now. It's a really hard one to take, and I don't necessarily see it getting better. But I'm going to pause there for a quick break from our partners at Zencaster, and I'm going to wrap up with some closing thoughts of if there is anything good to take from this season, what we can potentially not salvage the season with, but what glimmers of hope we might have heading into these last 9 games, and to go from there, to try and bring back the optimistic vibe we like to bring to the Daily Southampton podcast. But first, a message from our partners at Zencaster. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencaster came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencaster. Okay, so I'm back. Is there hope? That's the big question, right? Is there anything to look forward to in these 9 games? Yes, there is. Some of our players are still putting a shift in and putting a fight in. Not all of them, and it must be incredibly frustrating for the ones that are to see such a lack of effort from the ones that very evidently aren't. Matty Fernandez and Tyler Diblin, if we can keep either one of those two heading into next season, it puts us in a very strong position, I think, heading into the Championship. And, we've got Leicester, we've got Everton, we've got Fulham, who we did get a point against earlier in the season. So maybe we do accidentally manage to win one of those games. We have been playing all sort of well. It's hard to tell if it has been playing well or if it's just that our standards have dropped that low, but it felt against Wolves like we played better. It's hard to know if that was just looking for the positives, because both the goals were shocking. All 3 of the goals were shocking. I mean, Paul tripping over the ball and putting it in the net is what it is, but I think that Cameron Archer is a player that I'd like to see more of in these 9 games. I don't know if that's necessarily a popular opinion, but for me, he's He's a player who needs to be sharp and have those minutes. He's very good at being the player running forward, which is something that we definitely lacked for the entirety of the Wolves game. Sure, about 50% of the time he finds himself in an offside position, but at least he's moving forward, which is something that the rest of the team seem to struggle with, to move forward with the player who is moving forward with the ball. The amount of times we've seen Sulemana or Matty Fernandez break through with the ball and just have no options to pass it to, or even the amount of times we saw a ball fizzed out to Yuki for him to look up to whip a ball in, and there was just no one there. It's and sure, the one time there was someone there, Sulemana should have done better and kicked the ball in the net. But it's being in the positions for these chances. You can forgive missing and slipping up on chances like that easily if there's more of those chances that you do put away. But we're not doing that. We're not creating enough to be able to afford to miss chances like that. Our expected goals for the last 3 games are upsettingly low, and I know that it's not it's not a real statistic, right? But this is the first game. I look at the stats every game in preparation for the podcast, as sort of trying to look back without the emotional glasses at the performance with the stats to see if there's anything I can see. And this is the first game I can remember in recent memory that has had an expected goal of more than one for us, which is crazy because we know we're going to concede 2 or 3 goals. There has not been a game in recent memory where that hasn't been the case. That's fine if you know we can go on and score 3, but this is the first game we've had an expected goal. And yeah, I don't know if there's a real answer, to be honest. There are some players who we won't see again at the end of this season. Some of the players that will be sad for us, and some of them it won't be at all. There'll be some players who stay who that will be sad for us too. It's going to be a really tumultuous summer, to be honest. And hopefully we come out better for it and not sort of wallowing around in the middle of the championship, because that is not the place we want to be. If we get stuck there and don't immediately bounce straight back up, I think the season after will be even more of a struggle. And there's definitely an argument that if we do come straight back up, it might be too early again, and we might just find ourselves in the same position, yo-yoing back and forward. But it puts us in the best position to do things right that we didn't do this year, and try and learn and try and evolve. It's such a difficult thing to stay ahead of the curve, right? Because we were innovators with our black box and our statistical approach of signing good young players as well as some experience, and it worked for a while. And then other teams started to copy, and your Brightons and your Brentfords started with sort of similar and same approaches. And then once what happens then is, because you're not the only club doing that, that makes it much more difficult to do. There are multiple clubs looking at the same people. It drives the prices of these players up, and it makes it different. So we know now that that model probably no longer works for us. We've tried the exclusively young, promising players, and some of that has worked. Sure, we have had some good players. Next season, if all of our loan players come back and stay back with us, and we manage to keep a couple of our signings, we're going to have a very good championship squad. Because we'll have a Dozy, we'll have Shea Charles, hopefully we'll have Matty Fernandez, hopefully we'll have a Tyler Diblin. Yuki Sugawara should do very well in the championship. And we've got a real lineup potential. Adam Armstrong could come back, and if we saw what he could do in the championship last year, and hopefully we can take that and build upon it in a way that is going to work. It's going to be about balance. It's not going to be about exclusively signing young, promising players. We need some experience. We need some good experience, because we can't rely on the experience that we have in the team, because at this point, the experience we've had in our team, any Premier League experience they've got, has been 2 relegations, one of which being this season, which has been the worst season. If not, by the end of it, the worst Premier League season of all time. Definitely the worst Premier League season in Saints history. So we need different experience. We need good players. And that is going to come at a cost. So it's about finding that balance. We need some decent players and some promising youth, and mix it together and come out with that good stuff. Do I think Sports Republic have it in them to do that? Maybe it's delusional optimism, but yeah, I do think that. But they haven't shown anything so far to warrant that opinion, but they have acknowledged the problem. Brought in Johan Spors, who seems to have a very good football head. He's very experienced with this sort of group approaches. He's lodged himself at Staplewood. He's going to know what he wants and what his vision is. I just hope that it aligns with what the fans want. I hope that he does enough early on to earn himself the chance to build a longer term project. I don't want to see this one style of football and this is our style of football. My opinion on that is very well known. I don't think it works. I think we need something more pragmatic. I don't mind having something as a basis, but we need to be able to be dynamic and shift from it. And that's going to be very important, because the difference between the Premier League and the Championship is only going to grow. So, yeah, there is hope. I'm still feeling optimistic. Somehow, after all of it, I feel a lot better after venting to you guys. So thank you very much for joining me today for what I think I'm just going to call Football Therapy Tuesday. I hope that you'll join us tomorrow as we find some wildcard content to fill out this international break, as we take an opportunity to maybe look back on some fonder times or have a look at some of the international football that's coming on before we come back in a couple of weeks with the real Saint stuff. We'll, of course, be keeping an eye on all of the club news and any club training. I know that a lot of people are optimistic for a sort of corner flag announcement, but I feel like at this point, if it was going to happen before the next game, it probably would have happened already. So I'm not holding my breath, unfortunately. But as previously discussed, if there's a financial impact on next season, maybe it's best to just suffer through these 9 games and take it on the chin. They're not going to be enjoyable regardless of who's in charge. And it just kind of is what it is. I'm still mentally checked in for this season. I still have hope that we're going to go, and if we can get 2 wins, it looks so much better as a season. It's still only 15 points, but it's still remarkably better. If we can beat Leicester and ruin Everton's last home game at Goodison, it's almost a celebration worthy of the season. But there we go. That's me. We'll be back tomorrow. Let me know your opinions. Do you think there's anything worth looking forward to for the rest of the season, or are you fully checked into the Championship now? Until tomorrow.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.